How's it going, guys? Today we're going to be doing a few benchmarks with the Sonnet Breakaway box connected up to our HP Spectre x360. This is the 2020 edition with the 10th Gen i7 and the 4K OLED display, which I did a video on here not that long ago. And we've got the video card I did a video on here a couple days ago, which is the Asrock 5700XT Challenger in our enclosure, hooked up via Thunderbolt 3, and we're going to be doing some benchmarks today to demonstrate how much more gaming capable you can get with this laptop, because normally it just has the Intel integrated Iris GPU, and this gives us a lot more punch. Be right back here and we'll start testing it out. If you haven't already done so, please click the like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. Thanks. Today's video has been brought to you by Custom Bytes. Looking for a custom-built gaming PC to play all the hottest games? Custom Bytes offers no credit check needed financing. Go to www.customgamingcomputers.com and order your new gaming PC today. So you can see we've got this already installed and hooked up, and it's running at PCIe 4.0 at 4 lanes, which is interesting. Sorry, that's my cat sneezing. Interesting that it says it's running at 4.0 when I'm pretty sure 10th gen Intel chips still don't have support for PCI Express 4.0, so it's possible that GPU-Z just doesn't read it correctly. I don't know. But you can see it is running, it is working, and we've had some tests with this already. Idling about 33 degrees in the external enclosure. However, I have found that this card gets pretty insanely hot even in that enclosure, which, you know, is pretty good airflow. I mean, it's got an intake fan and it's got, you know, nothing else in there to heat it up, just itself. And it has an exhaust port on the back that allows the heat to get out, and it's still, it got up to dang near, I think, close to 90 degrees when I benchmarked it last time, so that's not real encouraging. I would not almost advise people to use that particular model, that Asrock Challenger, unless you are going to put some kind of aftermarket cooler on it or something, in which case you could probably afford a better card. But anyways, that's been my experience using it so far, is that it does get pretty hot. But I've downloaded a couple different benchmarks, and we'll probably try a couple game benchmarks and just kind of see what this thing is capable of. The CPU in this thing is a very low wattage CPU. Even though it is a 10th Gen i7, it is a quad core. It doesn't it doesn't get up to a super high frequency. I think it jumps up to either 3.6 or 3.9 gigahertz. I can verify that. But it's, like I say, not an ultra fast high-end CPU. And like I say, the card itself is only running at four lanes. Usually you want like a minimum of 8. So again, it's not going to be properly utilizing the card 100%. It's gonna slow it down a bit, but still, I found it was actually pretty capable. Like I played around with Mass Effect Andromeda a little bit, and some what else did I play on here? I've got some games in my Steam library on this thing, but yeah, just in general, it seems like it was perfectly capable of running quite a few games with the enclosure. Of course, that kind of eliminates the portability of the laptop, but the idea is you come home, and if you want to play some games, you plug it up to the enclosure, and then you can do that. And then when you go on, when you're going portable, you disconnect it and you just bring the laptop with you for, web surfing or some kind of productivity, but not really gaming. But that said, I will go ahead and we'll load up some benchmarks and see what kind of results we get. Here we go. Alright, so this was just your standard 3D Mark Firestrike score, which got about 12,000. And actually, the GPU this time, it says only got into the mid-60s on temperature, so I guess it didn't really get utilized that heavily on this. Some of the like I say, some of the tests I ran before, it ran much hotter, so that's kind of nice to see that it's maybe not so bad as I thought. But decent score on here. Combined score not so good. Like I said, the CPU on this thing is kind of holding the card back, unfortunately. But that's our results for Firestrike. Next, I will do regular Time Spy. So here we're doing the CPU test and Time Spy. Zoom in here for you. But not a particularly good frame rate. You can tell that it's struggling with this. Again, this is just, I think these things are 15 watts. It's a pretty low wattage CPU. For what it is, though, it does a good job. And like I say, for just general gaming and stuff, like at 1080p with this setup, or even some 1440p gaming, you can do pretty well. Not that this laptop was designed for gaming, but that's kind of why I like hooking it up to this enclosure, just because you can kind of screw around with things you normally couldn't. HDR, unfortunately, does not work correctly. You get like a lot of weird flickering and so forth. I've tried this with both an NVIDIA RTX 2060 EVGA KO, and now we're trying it with the 5700XT Challenger from AMD, and both have the same problem when it comes to enabling HDR. You get some weird flickering and so forth, which you end up having to restart the machine because it becomes unusable. But we'll find out what the score is here in just a sec. Alright, and there we got about a 4500, which isn't particularly awesome, but as you can see, the CPU score is where it suffers at, with only a 2321. I don't really have like any other comparative numbers handy, so maybe that would be better to do in the future, but it seems like I did some of these tests on like the previous video where I had that Dell G5 5590 that has the i7 9750H, which I ended up having to return because it kept overheating. But just performance wise though, I'm pretty sure that I was getting close to I think closer to 8,000 with that system, and that had the 1660 Ti built in, but just the CPU score was where it was definitely jumping all over this thing. I think those are 35 watts or 40 watts or something, and they're a hex core versus this being like say a quad and a much lower wattage CPU. But next let's try a couple games, I guess, and see how it does in those. Alright, so this is Battlefield 5. This is on all high settings, but of course no ray tracing because this is an AMD card and we can't enable that. But this is I think there's probably something higher than high, but it's hanging pretty much right at 60 frames a second. It's jumping up and down a little bit, but you can see, I don't know how well you can read the upper left hand corner there, but yeah, keeping a pretty steady 60 up. Well, okay, it dropped down to like 45 there real quick. And you gotta figure with a bunch of explosions and stuff going off in the actual game, that would probably make for a little bit of trouble. So you'd probably want to drop some settings to medium or something to really keep a consistent frame rate. CPU is getting utilized pretty well. The GPU utilization is kind of all over the place. Really looks good on this display. I don't know how well that's translating to the video, of course, but this OLED display is kick-ass for gaming and for anything else. The only problem with it, of course, is like I say, it doesn't have a dedicated GPU. It would be nice if it even had like a 1650 or something. You could have gamed in this on 1080p pretty nicely, like a 1650 mobile or a 1660 or something, and kept with the same CPU. It would have been pretty good. Uh-oh, we must return to the combat area. So yeah, I would say that the GPU is kind of languishing because the CPU isn't terrifically fast. It's like I'm using about 12 out of my 16 gigs of RAM. I don't think this is giving me any temperature reading. Oh, maybe that is. Yeah, okay, so the GPU is only getting in the low to mid 60s temp, but again, the utilization isn't very high, so that's got a lot to do with it. You can let's try to zoom in here a little bit so you guys can see this a little bit better. Okay, so yeah, you can see like CPU, you got the GPU temp here, 64 degrees, CPU temps in the mid to upper 60s, which is pretty good for this thing. But again, that's partly why I went with this machine over the one I had before that, and of course I really love the display, but part of why is just again the temperatures on the other one were unacceptably high. And this one's, this one doesn't weigh much. It's nice and portable. That's really running pretty nice, though. You gotta admit, like that's pretty smooth for this situation. Yeah. Cat's coming in to say hi. All right, we'll load up another game here in a second. All right, so here we got Hellblade: Senua's Story, which one of my favorite games, at least of late. I like the atmosphere. That's definitely having a little trouble there at points, but that's on very high settings. but this is only at 1080p. CPU utilization is kind of all over the place. GPU is only sitting about 50%. Maybe I'll try turning down some of the settings here real quick. Kind of hard to read this thing with the stupid numbers flopping around in front of it, but let's just try turning that down to high instead. Cat's still talking. This isn't quite so impressive after that in terms of performance. Alright, buddy. Cat really wants to play with these toys. Again, it looks really nice on here. OLED is the way to go. I love OLED. I'd really like to get an OLED gaming setup where it was like, I know that they're coming out all the time with more, you know, gaming monitors, or like kind of like your TV monitor hybrids that have G-Sync and have OLED display and have good HDR support. But that's one thing I wish I could get with this is, you know, HDR gaming experience with OLED would be probably the next thing I'd like to try. Like I've got my Samsung CRG, which is QLED, and HDR 1000, which is all fine and dandy, but OLED is still kind of the bee's knees, to use the term. So, I mean, this is playable, sitting in the mid-40s for sure. If you turn one or two settings down a little bit further, it would probably be a little bit better, but not running as well as I would like to see it, but, you know, playable. Certainly playable. This game kind of gets some fast-paced action sequences and certain boss fights might make it a little bit difficult to play in this, but otherwise it looks like for the majority of games a lot of puzzle solving, or like kind of basic wandering around and trying to find the next place to go sort of situation. So for that, this would be fine. It's just for some of the fight scenes. Plus, you probably almost want to play with like an external keyboard. The keyboard on this laptop isn't really designed for someone who's trying to play games, I don't think. It works. I mean, it works, but it's like it's kind of small. I think you'd want something a little bit more gaming oriented with a little bit better tactile sense for gaming. But let me load something else up here. We'll try one more game. I'll be right back. So I went ahead and downloaded Doom Eternal for this thing. Figured that'll be a good final game test, since Doom is pretty friendly with AMD hardware. This should run pretty well in here, I would think. I'll pause for a second while it's going through its first time setup, and we'll see how it runs. But I bet it'll run pretty good. Alrighty, let's see what we get here.
Against all the evil that hell
So we gotta listen to this crap again.
all the wickedness that mankind can produce, we will
The glossy reflective screen may or may not be your cup of tea. I like it this far. I think it makes it, I don't know, it looks really good as long as you don't have a bunch of shit reflecting off of it, of course. Skipping that. I haven't played this in a while, so forgive me if I don't know what the heck I'm doing. It's hard to tell what it says the FPS is because the number of the frame rate is right on like my guy's with the little number of lives icon, so that's sort of one of those annoyances. But GPU is sitting at about 98% utilization. This is in 1080p, everything on ultra settings. Frame rate's hovering around 75. CPU's getting good utilization. GPU's temperature is 68. Clock at 2030 megahertz. Oops. So I really don't know what to do. I haven't played this game in like a month or more, so it'll probably be terrible, but I wasn't that good at it to begin with. That's kind of why I wasn't playing it a whole lot. So there you go. I've never been good at shooters. Again, I really wish that we could do HDR on this, because I think that would make it just that much better. Alright, so keeping a night. Well, now that I've paused it, it's like 178. But seems like the frame rate was in between like 65 and 75. GPU temperature around 70 tops. Getting pretty good utilization. You can hear the fan really ramped up on the GPU. At least I can hear it. I don't know how well that's translating, but yeah, the fan really ramped up on that thing. But like I say, it's running at good temps, getting good frame rates, etc. Considering the card's only running at 4x. Now this game is, you know, designed to work well with AMD hardware. It's DirectX 12. That seems like that runs pretty well. NVIDIA's made some strides in improving there, but just in general, like I say, it seems like AMD is still kind of benefits more from DX12. So that game really runs quite well on there. I'm pretty pleased with that. I could try turning up the resolution real quick and we can see what it runs at. So let's do like, for some reason I can't enable 1440p on this. It does like 2560 by 1600 instead, which is a little strange because it's a 16 by 9 display. It shouldn't be offering that, but whatever, is what it is. Let me try going to, like I say, 1600p. Okay, for some reason it's actually, this game won't even let me select that at all. It only lets me go from 1080p to 2048 by 1152, which is pretty bizarre, and then right to 4K. Let's try it in 4K. What the hell? We've got the ability to try it. Well, now those numbers get really small, so I'll just have to read them off to you and let you know roughly what it's getting, but let's see. Yeah, it's definitely starting to be an issue here. 31 frames per second. I mean, this is on ultra though, so like maybe I'll try turning it down to high and see what it does. So that was on ultra. We're gonna switch down to high and see. Still 33. Doesn't really help much. Feels a little smoother. Like maybe it's maintaining that a little bit more. Not really my idea of much of a playable frame rate for a first-person shooter. So yeah, I don't think you'd want to go much above 1080p. Like I said, unfortunately, I can't get it to let me select kind of a mid-range resolution with QHD, so it looks like that's as far as we're going to be able to test it. But I hope people found this information kind of useful. Like I say, if you do have any kind of a laptop like this that isn't really designed for gaming but does have at least one Thunderbolt 3 port, excuse me, you can do the external GPU option by using some kind of an enclosure and getting, you know, either a mid-range to an upper-range video card in there. And this is the 450, I think this is either the 450 or the 550 watt version. This is the 550 watt version of the Breakaway box, and it has enough power to actually run the laptop and the video card. This particular GPU uses 225 watts. If you were to overclock it, obviously you could probably get up close to 300 on it or something, but between that and the laptop doesn't use very much power. I think it has a total of like a 45 watt power brick. So you figure the CPU is 15 watts, the display probably uses, you know, 7 watts or 10 watts or something like that. Altogether though, you know, it uses probably about 45. So between the GPU and the laptop, you can run everything off of the you know, the eGPU enclosure, and it will still power your machine. And that actually, on this particular machine, this this Spectre x360, the 2020 edition, has 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports. One's in the back right, and then there's one right next to it. So you could do an eGPU and then use the other port if you wanted to hook up to like a secondary enclosure and use another card for something else. I've actually tested like sound cards and other devices in the external enclosure, and they work. So like if, I mean, it'd look kind of corny and it'd be like almost having 2 docks or something, but I know that Seagate, for example, I believe makes like this external 4 terabyte hard drive with a bunch of ports that come off of it. It's like a dock with a big amount of storage. They call it like their gaming station. So you could hook up like the eGPU and the gaming station, have all your games installed on that external drive, and have, like I say, the eGPU handy at your desk. And when you got home, if you wanted to play games, boop, you just hook up the machine. One port goes to the eGPU, which powers the laptop and gives you your added GPU horsepower. Second port goes to your Seagate or whatever device you went with, but external enclosure or hard drive with all your games installed on it, and allows you to hook up extra peripherals to it, because apparently that thing has like some USB-C. It has, I think, an Ethernet port, and so on and so forth. And then voila, now you're gaming at pretty good settings with good refresh rates and whatnot on the laptop that was never really meant for gaming. So hope everybody found this useful. Hope you found it interesting. If you did, please leave a like and maybe leave a comment section below. And if you haven't already done so, I'd really appreciate if people would subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to get that 1,000 mark, and I'm kind of struggling lately to improve my numbers. So something like 99.5% of the people that watch the channel are not subscribers. So if today is the day that I've earned your subscription, I would really appreciate it if you'd hit the button. But if not, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. Take care.